Have you ever wondered why some people walk through storms without being shaken, while others crumble at the smallest setback? Deep inside, you know that life will always bring challenges. People will doubt you. Circumstances will test you. Even your own mind will sometimes whisper that you are not enough. But here's the truth. The strength to remain unshaken is not something given at birth. It is built. It is chosen. And it starts with a single decision: to stop letting the outside world control your inner world. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if nothing could disturb your peace. Not anger from others, not fear of failure, not rejection, not criticism, not even the storms you didn't see coming. You would move through life with power, with clarity, with unshakable confidence. That kind of strength doesn't just change how you feel. It changes how you live, how you act, how you rise. Most people allow their emotions to be shaped by what happens around them. They wake up feeling good only if things go their way. They fall apart the moment life says no. But if you truly want to grow, if you truly want to be unstoppable, you must break this cycle. You must stop being at the mercy of circumstances, because the world will never stop testing you. The only thing you can master is yourself. And when you master yourself, you unlock freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from doubt, freedom from the endless weight of trying to control things you cannot control. That is the greatest power a human being can have, the power to remain calm, steady, and focused no matter what. You might be thinking, that sounds impossible. How can anyone live unaffected by negativity, disappointment, or failure? The answer is not to deny your feelings. The answer is to build principles that are stronger than your emotions, principles that anchor you when the waves rise high, principles that guide your choices when everything feels uncertain. These principles are not abstract ideas. They are living truths that shape how you think, how you react, and how you carry yourself in the face of adversity. When you hold them deep inside, nothing can shake you for long. You may stumble, but you will rise faster. You may feel pain, but you will not be broken. You may face defeat, but you will not lose your spirit. That is the reward of building inner strength. It gives you the courage to face life on your terms. And that is why you need to stay here right now. Because what we are about to uncover together is not just advice. It is a set of powerful principles that can transform how you see the world and how you see yourself. If you let them sink in, if you truly live them, you will never again feel like life is in control of you. Instead, you will realize that you have always held the power to choose, power to endure, power to rise above. This is the journey we are beginning, a journey that leads to unshakable strength, no matter what the world throws at you. Stay with me, and let's build the kind of life where nothing, absolutely nothing, can affect you. Strength begins with the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. The world will always have opinions, some supportive, many destructive, but the voice that decides who you become is the one inside your own mind. If that voice is full of doubt, fear, and self-criticism, then every obstacle will feel like a mountain. If that voice is steady, encouraging, and unshakable, then even the hardest storms will feel like passing rain. What you repeat to yourself becomes your truth, and your truth creates your reality. That is why the first principle of becoming untouchable is guarding your inner dialogue. Because if you master that, nothing outside can control you. Think about how often you let small things take away your peace. A careless comment from someone, a delay in your plans, a door that closes when you thought it should open. Each time your mind rushes to negative thoughts, you tell yourself it always happens to you. You convince yourself you are unlucky, and without realizing it, you hand your power away. But imagine if, in those very moments, you shifted your inner voice. Imagine telling yourself, this does not break me. This makes me stronger. That simple shift changes everything. Because resilience is not built in calm times. It is forged in the moments when you want to give up, but choose not to. The mind is like a muscle. The more you feed it weakness, the weaker it gets. The more you train it with strength, the stronger it becomes. When you replace self-pity with self-belief, your entire perspective changes. Challenges no longer feel like curses, they feel like training. Failure no longer feels final, it feels like information. And criticism no longer feels like an attack, it becomes an opportunity to refine yourself. This is not about ignoring reality. It is about choosing a reality that serves you instead of one that destroys you. Because the truth is, your mind cannot hold on to two beliefs at once. If you hold on to strength, fear has no room to stay. Every time you rise above negative self-talk, You teach your brain that you are stronger than your emotions. And over time, this becomes who you are. People around you will notice. They will see a calmness in you that they cannot explain. They will wonder why insults don't shake you, why failures don't define you, why you keep moving forward even when the road is heavy. What they won't realize is that you have built an inner world so strong, no outside force can break it. That kind of strength is rare, but it is available to anyone who decides to take back control of their thoughts. Ask yourself right now, what would your life look like if every time fear whispered, you answered with courage? If every time doubt appeared, you responded with determination? If every time pain arrived, you turned it into fuel? That is not just motivation, it is mastery. And mastery begins with a choice to never again let your inner voice tear you down. Because once you command your own mind, nothing outside of it has the power to affect you. And when you reach that point, the world itself changes, not because it is easier, but because you are stronger. The second battle you must win is the battle over your emotions. Thoughts create feelings and feelings drive actions. If your emotions are uncontrolled, your life becomes a roller coaster. One moment you are motivated, the next you are discouraged. One day you feel unstoppable, the next you are crushed by something small. This constant rise and fall keeps you trapped. True strength is learning how to master your emotions so they work for you, not against you. It does not mean you never feel sadness, anger, or fear. It means you refuse to let those feelings decide who you are or how you act. You experience them, but you remain bigger than them. That is where freedom lives. Every emotion has a message. Fear warns you of danger. Anger signals a boundary. Sadness reveals a loss. These emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. But most people mistake the messenger for the truth. They let fear convince them not to try. They let anger push them into regretful actions. They let sadness convince them to give up. When you forget that emotions are only signals, you allow them to become chains. When you step back, observe them, and choose how to respond, you turn those same emotions into energy. Fear becomes preparation. Anger becomes passion. Sadness becomes depth. That is the shift that separates those who are controlled from those who are in control. Science shows that emotions last only a short time if you don't feed them with your thoughts. But many people replay the same story in their head, making the feeling stronger and longer. They replay the insult, the mistake, the disappointment, and the pain grows. If you want to be untouchable, you must break that cycle. When an emotion rises, notice it, name it, accept it, and then direct your focus to what strengthens you. This is not ignoring reality, it is refusing to drown in it. It is reminding yourself that no feeling is permanent, but the choices you make during those feelings can shape your life forever. Think of the power you gain when you no longer react blindly. Someone insults you, but instead of exploding, you remain calm. A setback arrives, but instead of collapsing, you adjust and move forward. Fear whispers that you cannot, but instead of retreating, you act anyway. That is emotional mastery. It makes you unpredictable to the world and unshakable within yourself. People may try to pull you into chaos, but they cannot reach you because your center is stable. Life may try to break your rhythm, but you remain in control of your pace. That kind of strength makes you magnetic. People are drawn to those who radiate calm under pressure. They see stability in you that they desperately wish to find in themselves. Ask yourself this. How many of your past regrets were born from emotions you didn't control? How many times did anger close doors? How many times did fear stop opportunities? How many times did sadness steal your motivation? Now imagine if every time those emotions appeared, you chose your response instead of letting the feeling choose for you. That is not just control, it is liberation. And when you master this, you step into a life where no wave, no storm, no unexpected moment can decide your destiny. Because you are no longer a servant to emotions, you are the master of them. When you gain control over your emotions, the next step is to build control over your focus. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Most people scatter their focus across distractions, worries, and endless noise and then wonder why they feel powerless. But your focus is the most valuable resource you have. If you give it to negativity, you grow weakness. If you give it to fear, you grow hesitation. If you give it to problems, you grow stress. But if you give it to solutions, you grow courage. If you give it to progress, you grow strength. If you give it to possibility, you grow hope. The direction of your life is shaped by the direction of your focus. Distraction is one of the greatest weapons the world uses to keep you from your true potential. Every day, your attention is pulled in 1,000 directions: social media, opinions, drama, and noise. And each time you give in, you lose a little more of yourself. You cannot expect to live a powerful life if your focus is constantly hijacked. The strongest people are not the ones who never face distraction. They are the ones who choose again and again to guard their focus like a treasure. They understand that every moment of attention is an investment, and whatever you invest in grows. If you spend your attention on weakness, you grow weaker. If you spend your attention on strength, you grow stronger. The choice is always yours. Psychologists have shown that the brain cannot fully concentrate on two things at once. Multitasking is an illusion. What you call multitasking is actually rapid switching, which drains energy and weakens performance. That is why those who live scattered lives feel exhausted but accomplish little. The power to remain unaffected begins with the discipline to direct your focus fully toward what matters and cut away what does not. This is not about ignoring the world. It is about mastering your own priorities. It is about saying no to what weakens you so you can say yes to what builds you. Imagine what happens when you choose to focus only on what lifts you higher. Suddenly, criticism loses its power because you no longer feed it your attention. Fear loses its grip because you no longer stare at the worst-case scenario. Problems shrink because you no longer obsess over them. You direct your energy into solving them, and progress becomes natural because your mind is no longer cluttered with noise. This level of focus turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. It turns chaos into clarity. It turns weakness into strength. Ask yourself, what are you focusing on each day? Are you pouring your energy into distractions, or are you fueling your growth? Are you feeding your mind with weakness, or are you training it with strength? Every moment is a choice, and every choice builds a direction. If you want nothing to affect you, you must master this principle. Protect your focus. Guard it fiercely, direct it wisely, because whatever owns your focus owns your life. And the moment you choose to take it back, the moment you choose to place it on what strengthens you, you step into unstoppable momentum. Nothing outside of you can break a person who refuses to give away their focus. Your focus shapes your energy, and your energy shapes your life. The next principle is learning to take full responsibility for it. Too often, people blame the world for their circumstances, waiting for permission, guidance, or luck to arrive. They say, if only this hadn't happened, or if only someone understood me. Every excuse you make is a chain that keeps you tethered to powerlessness. The moment you accept complete responsibility for your life, your emotions, your reactions, and your choices, you claim a power most people will never feel. Responsibility is not a burden. It is freedom. The freedom to shape your reality. The freedom to decide who you become, no matter what happens outside. Responsibility means no more blaming the people, events, or situations that trigger negative emotions. It means acknowledging that while you cannot control everything that happens, you can always control how you respond. Every insult, every failure, every setback becomes an opportunity to prove your strength if you choose. People who live unaffected by circumstance do not live in denial of pain. They live in command of their reaction to it. They understand that the external world is unpredictable, but the internal world is theirs to govern, and that governance is where true power resides. When you embrace responsibility, fear begins to lose its hold. Fear thrives on avoidance, on thinking that someone else must save you, or that luck must align for you to succeed. Responsibility cuts through that illusion. It says, I'm the architect of my life. I build, I endure, I rise. And once you own that truth, disappointment stops defining you. Challenges no longer feel like chains, they feel like tools. Obstacles become lessons, not punishments. Every time you respond with intentionality instead of reaction, you reinforce the muscle of personal power. The world may still challenge you, but it cannot control you because you have already claimed control where it matters most, inside. Responsibility also builds resilience because it forces you to confront truth without excuses. You no longer hide from mistakes or failures. You no longer pretend circumstances are fair. You face life directly and ask one question: what can I do now to move forward? That simple shift turns despair into action, stagnation into momentum, and frustration into clarity. When you stop blaming, you stop giving away your energy. And energy is the currency of progress. The more energy you reclaim, the faster you move toward the person you are capable of becoming. This is why people who live unaffected are not immune to difficulty. They are trained to convert it into power. Ask yourself, how often have you surrendered your power by blaming others or circumstances? How often have you let your life be dictated by what is outside your control? Imagine the strength you would feel if from this moment on, you refuse to give away your power. Every emotion, every action, every response belongs to you. The world cannot take it, the world cannot control it, and the world cannot diminish it. That is the essence of true freedom. And when you embrace this principle fully, you will find that nothing outside yourself has the ability to affect your peace, your clarity, or your momentum. You become untouchable because you have chosen to own everything that truly matters. Control over your mind, your emotions, and your focus leads naturally to the next principle, mastering your reactions. The world will constantly test you. People will push your buttons. Circumstances will provoke fear, anger, or frustration. But the moment you realize that nothing outside of you can make you act a certain way unless you allow it, you step into a level of power few ever experience. Every reaction is a choice. Every response carries the ability to either build you up or tear you down. Those who are unaffected do not suppress their emotions. They direct them. They feel fully, but they act deliberately. They choose clarity over chaos, strength over weakness, calm over panic. That is the mark of true mastery. Consider how often a single reaction has shaped your day, your relationships, or even your self-image. One angry word, one fearful thought, one impulsive action can spiral into regret, tension, or loss. But what if you pause before responding? What if, in that instant, you reminded yourself that the situation, the insult, the obstacle has power only if you give it power? That pause is more than control. It is freedom. Freedom to choose your path. Freedom to rise above negativity. Freedom to protect your energy and momentum. The longer you train yourself to respond rather than react, the less the world can affect you. Your center becomes unshakable, not because life is easy, but because your inner foundation is strong. Mastering your reactions is also about understanding cause and effect. Every action you take triggers a consequence, and the quality of that action determines the quality of the outcome. When you act out of anger, fear, or despair, the results are predictable: chaos, regret, and loss. When you act from strength, clarity, and purpose, the results are equally predictable: progress, respect, and growth. You cannot control everything around you, but you can always control the energy you bring into every situation. That energy becomes a shield, a force field that keeps negativity at bay and attracts opportunity and success. Nothing outside can pierce it unless you let it. This mastery extends beyond fleeting moments. It transforms the way you live daily. Stressful emails, rude comments, unexpected setbacks, and criticism no longer derail you. The chaos that once consumed your mind becomes background noise. Your life begins to move in a new rhythm, one dictated not by external events but by your consistent choice to act from power and calm. People notice this energy. They are drawn to it. They wonder how you remain composed when the world feels like it is falling apart. They cannot see what you have built inside: the deliberate control, the careful discipline, the unwavering commitment to remain unaffected. But they feel it, and it changes how they interact with you. Ask yourself, how often have you allowed a reaction to control your life, your emotions, your future? How often have you given your power away in a split second? Imagine what it would feel like to move through the world untouchable, responding with clarity and intention, untouched by criticism, rejection, or chaos. That is the freedom that comes from mastering your reactions. That is the strength that turns ordinary moments into opportunities for power. And that is the moment when you realize nothing outside of you has the authority to define who you are or how you feel. You become unstoppable, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The next principle is learning to detach from outcomes. Most people live in constant anxiety because they're obsessed with results. They measure their self-worth, their happiness, and their progress based on what happens rather than what they do. But outcomes are influenced by countless variables beyond your control. The moment you attach your peace to results, you surrender your power to the unpredictable. True freedom comes when you commit fully to action, effort, and excellence without tying your inner state to the reaction of the world. You do what you can control and you release what you cannot. That is where strength becomes unshakable. Detachment is not indifference. It is not laziness or surrender. It is a deep conscious choice to remain grounded regardless of circumstances. You can pursue your goals with relentless intensity and still stay calm when obstacles arise. You can work tirelessly towards success and still protect your inner peace when the path is blocked. Detachment allows you to act without fear, without desperation, without the heavy burden of expectation. When your energy is not consumed by worrying about results, it flows freely into focus, creativity, and resilience. This is why the most powerful people never let external validation dictate their confidence. They know their worth is anchored inside. Psychology shows that attachment to outcomes creates stress, anxiety, and reactive behavior. When you are dependent on results, every setback feels personal, every delay feels like failure, and every criticism cuts deeper than it should. Your mind is consumed by what might happen instead of what you are doing. But when you detach, you shift your attention from fear to action, from worry to process, from external chaos to internal command. You recognize that life will unfold as it must, but your contribution, your effort, and your integrity remain within your control. That realization is liberating. It transforms pressure into clarity, panic into patience, and doubt into deliberate movement. Detachment also strengthens resilience because it teaches you that the world cannot define you. Wins and losses come and go, but your identity and your purpose remain. When a goal is missed, you learn and adjust instead of collapsing. When a dream faces resistance, you persist without losing yourself. When judgment falls upon you, you observe and respond without anger. That is the level of stability that makes a person untouchable. Life may test you endlessly, but you are anchored in the present, focused on effort, and untouched by the outcomes that others obsess over. You are no longer a hostage to the world. Ask yourself, how many times has worrying about what might happen drained your energy and distracted you from action? How often have you let fear of failure or desire for approval dictate your choices? Imagine the power that comes from letting go of results and embracing effort as your guiding force. Imagine moving through life fully committed, fully present, fully alive, without giving the world authority over your peace. That is the essence of detachment. That is the strength that makes you invincible. And when you integrate this principle, you will find that nothing outside of you can steal your focus, your confidence, or your clarity. You act, you give, you rise. And the world no longer has the power to affect the calm, unstoppable force you have become. The next principle is the power of perspective. Life does not happen to you. It happens for you. Every event, every challenge, every obstacle carries a lesson, an opportunity, or a hidden advantage if you choose to see it. Most people view circumstances as threats, problems, or punishments, and they allow fear, anger, or frustration to dominate their response. But perspective transforms the same situation into a teacher, a stepping stone, and a catalyst for growth. When you train your mind to see through this lens, nothing external can shake your confidence or your peace. Your reality is not defined by events. It is defined by how you interpret them. Your perspective is the filter through which all experience passes. If that filter is clouded by negativity, you magnify problems, amplify fears, and diminish yourself. If that filter is clear, grounded in purpose and resilience, you see opportunity, growth, and possibility even in adversity. It is not the event that controls your life. It is the meaning you assign to it. This understanding creates a fundamental shift. Challenges no longer feel like punishments. They feel like invitations to rise. Criticism no longer feels like attack. It feels like insight. Failure no longer feels final. It feels like instruction. That shift in perspective changes everything. It gives you control over the uncontrollable. It turns chaos into clarity. Neuroscience proves that the brain responds to perception, not reality. The same situation can trigger fear, stress, and paralysis in one person, and curiosity, calm, and action in another. Your mind is wired to respond to meaning. When you consciously choose a perspective that empowers rather than diminishes, you alter your entire physiological and psychological state. Your heart rate stabilizes, your focus sharpens, and your energy increases. Your mind becomes a tool, not a cage. You are no longer a passive victim of circumstance. You are an active creator of your response and therefore your life. Perspective also builds resilience because it allows you to separate events from your identity. When someone criticizes you, your value is not diminished. You are simply being given data to consider. When a plan fails, your confidence is not destroyed. You are being shown how to adjust and improve. When life feels unfair, you are being asked to see what you can control and what you can learn. This ability to reframe, to find the constructive meaning in every experience, makes you untouchable. People can still attempt to provoke, hurt, or discourage you, but you remain centered, grounded, and clear. You see through the illusion of control they try to exert and reclaim your own power immediately. Ask yourself, how often have you let your perspective determine your suffering instead of your growth? How often have you magnified fear, stress, or disappointment by believing it defines you? Imagine a life where every challenge is viewed as an opportunity, every criticism as insight, every failure as instruction. Imagine moving through the world untouchable because your inner lens transforms every obstacle into fuel. That is the strength of perspective. That is the mindset that protects your peace, amplifies your power, and ensures that nothing outside of you can truly affect your spirit. When you master perspective, you rise above circumstance, and the world loses the power to control your heart, your mind, and your destiny. The next principle is the power of boundaries. Your energy, your focus, and your peace are precious, and nothing external should be allowed to drain them without permission. Most people live without clear limits, giving away their time, their attention, and their emotional energy to anyone who asks, or even to anyone who demands it silently. Toxic relationships, unnecessary obligations, and constant exposure to negativity slowly erode your inner strength. To become untouchable, you must create boundaries that protect your inner world. You decide what enters, what stays, and what leaves. You are the gatekeeper of your own mind and heart, and this is not optional. It is essential. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are measures to keep your focus, your emotions, and your energy intact. They allow you to engage with the world from strength rather than depletion. When you know where your limits lie, you no longer react impulsively to provocation, manipulation, or drama. Instead, you respond with calm, clarity, and confidence. You conserve your energy for what truly matters, and you no longer allow external chaos to define your state of mind. Every moment you invest in enforcing boundaries is a moment you invest in freedom, in power, and in unshakable inner peace. Psychology confirms that people with strong boundaries experience higher emotional resilience, lower stress, and greater life satisfaction. Boundaries are a declaration of self-respect and self-worth. They teach the world how to treat you. When you set limits, you communicate that your time, energy, and emotional well-being are not negotiable. This is a form of self-mastery because you are no longer at the mercy of external forces. You do not need to react to every demand, criticism, or expectation. You are in control of what you allow to affect you. That is a power most people never claim, yet it is available to anyone willing to defend their inner world. Boundaries also reinforce your focus and priorities. When distractions, negativity, and unnecessary obligations are removed, your energy flows directly into your goals, your growth, and your strength. You act from intention, not reaction. You conserve power for the battles that matter and refuse to be consumed by those that do not. Over time, this creates a life where chaos has no authority, where criticism cannot derail you, where stress has no permanent hold. You are untouchable because your energy is protected, your mind is clear, and your spirit is defended. This is how boundaries create invincibility. Ask yourself, how often have you let someone else's words, expectations, or drama drain your energy or control your emotions? How often have you sacrificed your focus or peace to appease the world? Now imagine living untouchable, where your boundaries are strong, your energy is protected, and your inner world is sacred. Imagine moving through life fully present, fully empowered, and fully in control of what you allow to influence you. That is the strength of boundaries. That is the armor that ensures nothing external can affect your clarity, your courage, or your spirit. When you master this principle, you step into a space where peace is your default, focus is your habit, and power is your natural state. The world may try to push, pull, or provoke, but your boundaries make you untouchable. The next principle is the power of acceptance. Life is full of things you cannot change, circumstances beyond your control, in moments that feel unfair. Resistance to reality creates suffering. Most people fight what is, complain about what isn't, and waste endless energy wishing life were different. But acceptance is not resignation. It is a radical acknowledgement that reality exists as it does, and your power comes from how you respond to it. When you stop fighting the inevitable, you stop being a victim to it. Acceptance frees you from frustration, anger, and fear, and it allows you to act from clarity and strength. Acceptance gives you perspective. It does not mean you like everything that happens, nor does it mean you stop striving for change where you can influence it. What it does mean is that you stop wasting energy on what cannot be changed. You stop arguing with reality and start working with it. Every storm, every setback, every disappointment can be transformed into fuel for growth if you first accept it. Resistance only prolongs suffering, while acceptance accelerates mastery. The world will always have challenges. The people around you will always have flaws. Life itself will always be unpredictable. But acceptance ensures that none of it controls your inner state. Psychology shows that acceptance reduces stress, improves decision-making, and increases resilience. The more you fight what is, the more your energy is drained, and the less capable you are of responding effectively. But when you accept reality as it is, you conserve energy, sharpen focus, and strengthen your ability to act decisively. You create a mental environment where clarity replaces chaos and calm replaces panic. Acceptance is the foundation of mental invincibility because it removes the unnecessary battles that steal your power and leaves you free to face what truly matters with full presence and strength. Acceptance also strengthens emotional control. When life throws criticism, rejection, or failure at you, you no longer waste time resisting or blaming. Instead, you observe, you learn, and you respond. You no longer take external events as personal attacks because you understand that reality is neutral. It is neither for you nor against you. Your power comes from the way you navigate it. This is what makes someone untouchable. The world may attempt to provoke, pressure, or challenge you endlessly, but acceptance allows you to stand firm. You acknowledge what is, process it fully, and act with purpose, untouched by unnecessary emotional turbulence. Ask yourself, how often have you wasted your energy resisting reality, wishing life were different, or resenting what has already happened? How much strength could you gain if instead you fully accepted what is and focused on what you can control? Imagine moving through life untouchable, where external events no longer dictate your emotions, where setbacks do not shake your foundation, and where clarity and action replace frustration and fear. That is the power of acceptance. That is the principle that transforms resistance into strength, chaos into calm, and challenges into opportunity. When you master this, nothing outside of you can affect your peace, your focus, or your momentum. You become unshakable because you have made your inner world untouchable. The next principle is the power of self-discipline. Freedom and invincibility are born from control over yourself, not control over others. Without discipline, all the principles you've built, mind mastery, emotional control, focus, boundaries, acceptance, cannot be sustained. Discipline is the invisible muscle that strengthens every aspect of your life. It is the daily commitment to do what is necessary, even when you do not feel like it, even when distractions tempt you, even when your mind screams for comfort or avoidance. Discipline ensures that your actions align with your highest goals, and it makes you untouchable because it removes dependence on external motivation or circumstance. Self-discipline is not about punishment or rigidity. It is about consistency, reliability, and loyalty to yourself. It is the choice to honor your commitments to your growth, your health, your purpose, and your character above temporary comfort. Most people fail because they chase feeling good, avoid discomfort, or react only when motivated. But those who become untouchable act regardless of mood, emotion, or circumstance. They understand that the strength to remain unaffected does not come from luck, talent, or favorable conditions. It comes from showing up again and again with intentionality, even when it is difficult. That consistency is what creates mastery over life itself. Research confirms that habits and consistent actions build more strength than willpower alone. Willpower is finite, habits are compounding. Self-discipline transforms small actions into monumental results over time. Every time you resist a temptation, push through a challenge, or act despite doubt, you reinforce the neural pathways that define resilience, focus, and strength. You literally train your brain to become unshakable. The more disciplined you are, the less external events can disturb you because your inner foundation is no longer fragile. It is fortified through repeated deliberate action. Discipline also protects your peace because it removes chaos and impulsivity from your life. When you act intentionally rather than reactively, you no longer give away your energy to distractions, drama, or negative emotions. You create a life that aligns with your values and your goals, and that alignment itself generates an unbreakable confidence. The world may attempt to pull you off course, but your habits, your structure, and your consistent actions act as anchors. You move through life with clarity, purpose, and momentum, untouchable by random forces, opinions, or setbacks. Ask yourself, how often have you let inconsistency, procrastination, or weakness dictate your progress and peace of mind? How often have you relied on fleeting motivation instead of structured action? Imagine the power that comes when every day, every choice, and every action builds toward your invincibility. Imagine moving through life untouchable because your discipline has created an inner structure no outside force can dismantle. That is the strength of self-discipline. That is a force that ensures your focus, your energy, your emotions, and your reactions are always under your command. When you master this, you become unstoppable, not because life changes, but because you have built the inner power to face anything without compromise. The next principle is the power of gratitude. Strength is not only built in moments of action and control, it is fortified by the lens through which you view your life. Gratitude is a conscious choice to focus on what is working, what you have accomplished, and the blessings present even in difficult moments. Most people allow scarcity, fear, or comparison to dominate their minds. They fixate on what is missing, what went wrong, or what others possess. This constant focus on lack weakens your spirit and makes you vulnerable to negativity. Gratitude rewires your mind, anchors your emotions, and shields your energy. It makes you untouchable because it grounds you in abundance rather than deprivation. Gratitude is not about ignoring problems or pretending life is perfect. It is about refusing to let life's challenges overshadow what is already good. When you practice gratitude, even for the smallest victories, you reinforce a sense of control and clarity. You shift your focus from frustration to possibility, from despair to motivation. The brain responds to gratitude by releasing chemicals that boost mood, focus, and resilience. Every day you choose to recognize the positives, your mind strengthens its capacity to remain calm under pressure, energized in adversity, and unwavering in purpose. This is why gratitude is not soft. It is a weapon for mental and emotional fortitude. When you are grateful, external criticism, setbacks, and negativity lose their power. You no longer measure your worth by what happens to you or by what others say. Instead, you measure your worth by your awareness, your effort, and your perspective. Gratitude allows you to see beyond immediate circumstances and recognize the long-term progress you are making. It transforms challenges into lessons and difficulties into stepping stones. People who are untouchable are rarely bitter. They experience hardship, yet they maintain a deep acknowledgement of the opportunities, lessons, and growth embedded in every trial. This perspective makes them resilient, focused, and almost impossible to destabilize. Gratitude also amplifies other principles you have built. Discipline feels lighter when you appreciate the effort itself. Boundaries are easier to maintain when you value your energy. Acceptance becomes natural when you see the positives alongside the negatives. Perspective deepens when you can recognize the lessons hidden in adversity. Emotional control becomes easier when you acknowledge what is working in your favor. Gratitude is the glue that binds your inner strength, giving you a foundation that is not only stable but also expansive. It turns your inner world into a fortress of clarity, calm, and energy that the outside world cannot penetrate. Ask yourself, how often have you focused on what is missing rather than what is present? How often have you allowed setbacks to overshadow progress, criticism to eclipse achievement, or fear to mask possibility? Imagine the power of living untouchable, where your mind and heart are filled with appreciation even in struggle. and where every challenge becomes a source of clarity and motivation. That is the power of gratitude. That is the principle that protects your energy, strengthens your emotions, and ensures nothing external can shake your foundation. When you embrace gratitude fully, you rise above circumstance, and the world loses the ability to affect your peace, your focus, and your inner strength. The next principle is the power of detachment from opinion. The moment you give the world authority over your self-worth, your confidence, and your peace, you become vulnerable. People will judge, criticize, and misinterpret you. They will attempt to influence your choices, sway your emotions, and dictate your sense of value. Most people unconsciously hand over this power, shaping their lives around approval, validation, or fear of rejection. But those who are untouchable understand that no one's opinion defines them. Your value, your focus, and your inner peace are your responsibility alone, and you do not need permission to exist fully, act boldly, or rise above negativity. Opinions are external. They come from perspectives shaped by other people's fears, limitations, and biases. When you let them control you, you are allowing someone else's mindset to dictate your energy and your direction. This is why detachment is essential. It does not mean you ignore advice or constructive feedback. It means you filter everything through your own wisdom, purpose, and principles. You act based on your clarity, your discipline, and your values, not on the fleeting judgments or transient approval of others. Detachment frees your mind and protects your emotional state from the chaos of external influence. Psychology shows that seeking constant validation activates fear and insecurity, creating dependency on external forces for self-worth. The more you rely on the opinions of others, the less stable your inner foundation becomes. Conversely, when you detach from these opinions, your confidence becomes intrinsic. It grows from your self-awareness, your accomplishments, and your commitment to principles that matter. You are no longer reactive to praise or criticism. You respond from clarity, intention, and purpose. This is the mindset of someone who is untouchable. The world may talk, judge, and speculate, but you remain steady, unmoved, and unwavering. Detachment from opinion also enhances focus and emotional energy. When you are not constantly measuring yourself against the approval of others, you conserve mental and emotional resources for what truly matters: growth, action, and resilience. You are free to pursue your goals without fear of judgment, to express yourself without hesitation, and to take risks without restraint. This creates a life where your inner authority determines your path, rather than the shifting whims of external voices. The energy you save by refusing to be influenced by others becomes fuel for discipline, persistence, and mastery over yourself. Ask yourself, how often have you allowed someone else's opinion to dictate your mood, your actions, or your self-image? How often have you surrendered peace and focus because you were seeking approval? Imagine moving through life untouchable, where your confidence comes from within, your energy is protected, and your clarity is unshakable. That is the strength of detachment from opinion. That is the principle that ensures your inner world is yours alone, safe from criticism, judgment, or negativity. When you master this, you rise above the noise of the world, and nothing outside of you can affect your courage, your focus, or your inner power. The next principle is the power of patience. Strength and resilience are not built overnight, and neither is an untouchable mind. Most people live in constant rush, demanding instant results, immediate validation, and fast rewards. This impatience creates frustration, anxiety, and vulnerability. The world will never move entirely according to your timeline. Circumstances will take longer than expected. People will fail to meet your standards, and progress will often feel slow or invisible. But patience transforms this reality from a source of stress into a source of power. When you cultivate patience, you reclaim control over your mind, your emotions, and your energy. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active endurance, calm persistence, and strategic persistence in the face of delay and difficulty. It allows you to maintain focus and clarity while the world moves at its unpredictable pace. The impatient person reacts to every setback, every delay, and every disappointment with agitation or surrender. The patient person observes, adapts, and acts with precision, knowing that momentum is built over time, not in a single instant. Patience becomes the silent force that protects your inner world from being shaken by external events, allowing you to rise stronger and more composed with every challenge. Scientific research confirms that patience is a critical component of emotional intelligence, resilience, and long-term success. When you cultivate patience, your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and self-control, becomes stronger. You are better able to regulate emotions, think clearly under pressure, and act strategically rather than react impulsively. This neurological advantage is what makes patient individuals untouchable, while others are swept away by frustration, stress, or the urgent need for immediate results. The patient maintains stability, focus, and consistent action, unshaken by external turbulence. Patience also strengthens perspective. When you understand that every process unfolds in its own time, you stop perceiving delays as failures or obstacles. You begin to see them as part of the growth process. Criticism, rejection, or slow progress no longer threaten your confidence because you recognize that mastery, results, and transformation require time. Your peace of mind is no longer dependent on instant gratification, external approval, or immediate outcomes. Instead, it rests firmly in your commitment to steady, disciplined effort and your trust in the process of life itself. That is the hallmark of someone who is untouchable, calm, resilient, and focused regardless of circumstance. Ask yourself, how often has impatience cost you peace, clarity, or progress? How many opportunities have you missed because you wanted immediate results or allowed frustration to override discipline? Imagine moving through life untouchable, where your energy is conserved, your focus remains sharp, and your actions are guided by calm, strategic persistence. That is the power of patience. That is the principle that ensures nothing outside of you can destabilize your mind, your emotions, or your progress. When you master patience, you rise above urgency, chaos, and distraction, and you become an unstoppable force, untouched by the unpredictable flow of the world.